The man who could buy anything in the world finally met the one person who wanted something money could not simply purchase. Alexander Whitmore had heard countless requests throughout his life. People asked for opportunities, favors, connections, and expensive gifts. As the powerful mafia boss of New York, he was used to seeing people change the moment they learned his identity. Their words became careful, their smiles became calculated, and their kindness often came with expectations. That was why Sophia Bennett caught his attention. She was just a waitress at an elegant restaurant in Manhattan, working long shifts while carrying herself with quiet confidence. She knew many important people visited the restaurant, but she never treated them differently because of their status. She greeted everyone with the same respect, whether they were wealthy guests or tired employees finishing their day. Alexander noticed that difference immediately. One evening, after a private dinner meeting at the restaurant, he remained seated longer than usual. He watched Sophia move through the room, helping customers, solving small problems, and making sure everyone felt welcome. She never tried to impress him. She never searched for an opportunity to get closer. To Alexander, that was unusual. Most people wanted something from him before they even knew him. Sophia seemed different. When she brought his final cup of coffee, Alexander asked a question that surprised her. If you could have anything you wanted, what would it be? Sophia paused. She expected a normal request from a customer, not a question about her dreams. She looked at him carefully before answering. Most people would probably expect me to say money, she said. But honestly, I would want a real chance. Alexander leaned back, curious. He had expected a luxury item, a large amount of money, or something connected to a better lifestyle. Instead, Sophia talked about creating a stable future, building something meaningful, and having the opportunity to support the people who had always supported her. She did not speak like someone waiting for someone else to save her. She spoke like someone who only needed one open door. That answer stayed in Alexander's mind long after he left the restaurant. He had spent years surrounded by people who believed wealth solved every problem. But Sophia reminded him that some dreams were not about possessions. Some dreams were about possibility. The next morning, Alexander sat in his office overlooking the city. The streets below were already filled with people chasing their own goals. He thought about the waitress who had answered his question differently from everyone else. She had not tried to gain his sympathy. She had not asked for special treatment. She had simply shared the truth. For the first time in years, Alexander felt curious about someone's story instead of their usefulness. He wanted to know more about Sophia Bennett. He wanted to understand why someone with so little had shown so much strength. And before the day ended, Alexander made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. Alexander Whitmore had spent years believing that every problem had a solution if a person had enough resources, enough influence, and enough determination. Money could open doors, power could create opportunities, and connections could change the direction of almost any situation. But after meeting Sophia Bennett, he started questioning a belief he had carried for most of his life. He realized that some people did not need someone to fix everything for them. Sometimes, they only needed someone to believe in them. The following morning, Alexander could not stop thinking about the conversation at the restaurant. He remembered Sophia's answer clearly. She had not asked for luxury, attention, or a shortcut. She had simply wanted a chance to build something meaningful. That answer stayed with him because it was so different from what he normally heard. In his world, people often approached him with carefully planned requests. They knew his reputation, his wealth, and his ability to influence outcomes. Sophia had known who he was, yet she never treated him like a solution to all her problems. That made him curious. Alexander decided to learn more about her story. He did not want information because of business or personal advantage. He wanted to understand the person behind the quiet confidence he had noticed. Through a simple conversation with people at the restaurant, he learned that Sophia had worked there for several years. She arrived early, stayed late, and always helped others even when nobody was paying attention. She had built a reputation among her co-workers as someone dependable and thoughtful. She was not the loudest person in the room, but she was often the one people trusted the most. Alexander found that interesting because his own life had been the opposite. He was surrounded by people who knew his name, but very few who truly understood him. Later that day, Alexander returned to the restaurant without announcing his arrival. He wanted to see whether Sophia treated him differently when she knew he was watching. But nothing changed. She greeted customers with the same kindness. She helped her co-workers with the same patience. She carried herself with the same quiet confidence. That moment confirmed something Alexander had already started to believe. Sophia was not pretending to be humble. It was simply who she was. Before leaving, Alexander asked Sophia one more question. Why do you work so hard when nobody seems to notice? Sophia smiled slightly. Because the value of doing the right thing does not depend on whether someone is watching. Those words stayed with Alexander. He had spent years in a world where recognition mattered. Success was measured by influence, achievements, and visible results. Sophia reminded him that some of the most meaningful actions happened quietly. That evening, Alexander sat in his office and looked over the city lights. He thought about the waitress who had changed the way he viewed ambition. She was not asking for someone to give her everything. She was asking for an opportunity to create something herself. And Alexander knew he wanted to help, not because he felt sorry for her, but because he respected the strength he saw in her. For the first time in a long while, Alexander Whitmore wanted to give someone a chance without expecting anything in return. Alexander Whitmore had never been the type of person to make decisions without careful thought. Every choice he made was based on information, strategy, and understanding the possible results. Yet Sophia Bennett was becoming the one person who made him question the way he viewed the world. She did not fit into the patterns he had known for years. She was not impressed by his wealth, she was not interested in his reputation, and she never acted differently simply because he had power. That honesty made Alexander want to know more about her. Over the next several days, he quietly learned about Sophia's life outside the restaurant. He discovered that her dream was not about becoming famous or living a life of luxury. Her greatest wish was connected to creating stability and having the opportunity to build something of her own. She had always carried responsibilities that most people never noticed, but she continued moving forward with determination. Alexander found himself respecting her more with every detail he learned. He had met many people who talked about success, but Sophia was someone who worked toward it without needing attention. One afternoon, Alexander visited the restaurant again and asked Sophia if she had ever considered starting a new chapter in her life. She looked surprised by the question. She explained that dreams were important, but dreams without opportunities often remained only dreams. She had learned to be realistic. She appreciated what she had and continued working hard because she believed small steps still mattered. Alexander listened carefully. Her answer reminded him that many people did not fail because they lacked talent or dedication. Sometimes, they simply never received the opportunity to show what they could achieve. That thought stayed with him. For the first time, Alexander was not thinking about how much money he could give someone. He was thinking about how he could create a genuine opportunity. He wanted Sophia to have a chance to prove herself, not because she needed to be rescued, but because she deserved to be recognized. Before leaving the restaurant that day, Alexander asked Sophia about the one thing she would do if she had complete freedom to choose. She took a moment before answering. She talked about creating a place where people felt welcomed, a place built with care and purpose. She did not describe expensive things or personal rewards. She described something meaningful. Alexander realized that her dream reflected the same qualities he admired about her. She wanted to create value for others. That evening, Alexander returned to his office and reviewed the possibilities. He had helped many people before, but those situations were often connected to business or responsibility. This felt different. This was personal, but not because he wanted anything from Sophia. It was because he believed her potential deserved a chance. Meanwhile, Sophia continued her normal routine, unaware that someone powerful had started thinking about her future. She never expected a stranger with influence to notice her efforts. She never expected someone to remember a simple conversation. But Alexander Whitmore remembered every word. And by the end of that night, he made a decision that would soon place an unexpected opportunity in Sophia Bennett's hands. The next morning, Sophia Bennett arrived at the restaurant expecting another ordinary day. She prepared tables, greeted customers, and followed the same routine she had followed for years. She had no idea that a simple conversation with Alexander Whitmore had continued to stay in his thoughts. To Sophia, it had only been a brief moment with a customer who asked an unusual question. She never imagined that her honest answer would inspire someone with incredible influence to make a decision that could change her future. Across the city, Alexander was reviewing the plan he had created. He did not want to give Sophia a temporary solution that disappeared after a few weeks. He wanted to provide something meaningful, something that would allow her to create the future she had always imagined. He understood that simply handing someone money was easy. Giving someone an opportunity was much more valuable. Alexander decided that Sophia needed more than a financial gift. She needed a symbol that represented trust. He arranged for something that reflected his belief in her potential, something that would allow her to take the first step toward her dream. While Alexander worked quietly behind the scenes, Sophia continued focusing on her responsibilities. She helped customers who were having difficult days. She encouraged new employees who felt nervous. She never realized that these small actions were the reason Alexander respected her so much. Later that afternoon, Sophia received an unexpected message asking her to meet briefly after her shift. She was confused because she had no idea what it could be about. When she arrived, she saw Alexander waiting for her. He looked different from the man she first met. He was still confident and powerful, but there was a sense of sincerity in the way he spoke. "I have been thinking about what you said," Alexander told her. "You did not ask for something you could simply receive. You asked for a chance to create something." Sophia listened carefully, unsure where the conversation was going. Alexander explained that he wanted to support her next step. He wanted her to have access to resources that could help her pursue the dream she had described. Sophia was surprised. She immediately told him that she appreciated the thought, but she did not want anyone to misunderstand her intentions. She did not want sympathy. She did not want a favor that made her feel dependent. Alexander respected that answer because it confirmed what he already believed about her. She was not looking for someone to carry her. She was looking for a chance to stand on her own. "That is exactly why I want to help," Alexander replied. "Because you are not asking for someone to change your life. You are asking for the opportunity to change it yourself." Sophia had no response at first. She was used to working hard without expecting recognition. She was used to people noticing her job before noticing her abilities. But Alexander saw something different. He saw determination, discipline, and potential. As the conversation ended, Sophia still could not fully understand why someone like Alexander would believe in her. She had no idea that by the next morning, a mysterious package would arrive with something that represented a completely new beginning. The next morning, Sophia Bennett arrived at the restaurant expecting another normal shift. She prepared the tables, greeted familiar customers, and focused on the responsibilities she had carried for years. She had no reason to believe that anything would be different. To her, the conversation with Alexander Whitmore was simply a surprising moment with a customer who had asked a question she never expected to hear. She did not know that her honest answer had stayed in his mind. She did not know that someone with the ability to change many lives had decided to give her the opportunity she had always hoped for. During the early hours of the morning, a carefully prepared package arrived at the restaurant with Sophia's name on it. She looked at it with confusion. She had not ordered anything, and she was not expecting a delivery. Her co-workers were curious, but Sophia quietly opened the package herself. Inside was a simple black card with a personal message from Alexander Whitmore. It was not presented as a reward or a way to control her choices. It was presented as a reminder that someone believed in her potential. Sophia stared at the card for a long moment. She understood what it represented, but she also felt uncertain. She had spent years building her life through patience and hard work. She never wanted anyone to think she was searching for an easy way forward. The first thought that crossed her mind was not excitement. It was responsibility. She wanted to understand why Alexander had done this and what he expected in return. Later that day, Sophia contacted Alexander and asked to speak with him. When they met, she placed the card on the table between them. "I appreciate what you are trying to do," she said, "but I need to understand why." Alexander looked at her with respect. He expected many reactions, but he did not expect her to question the gift itself. "Because I believe you deserve a chance," he explained. "Not because I think you cannot succeed without help. Because I think you can achieve something meaningful if someone opens the right door." Sophia listened carefully. She realized that Alexander was not looking at her as someone who needed saving. He was looking at her as someone with ability that had not yet been recognized. That difference mattered. For most of her life, Sophia had worked hard while people focused only on her position as a waitress. They rarely asked about her dreams or her ideas. Alexander was the first person in a long time who saw beyond her job. Still, Sophia wanted to be clear. "I do not want this because of who you are," she said. "I want to know that I earned the opportunity." Alexander smiled because that answer confirmed everything he admired about her. That is exactly why I chose you, he replied. Because you care about building something, not just receiving something. Their conversation changed the way Sophia viewed the situation. The black card was not just a symbol of wealth. It was a symbol of trust. For Alexander, it was a way to recognize someone who had spent years proving her character without anyone watching. For Sophia, it was the beginning of a possibility she never expected. She returned home that evening with many thoughts on her mind. She still did not know where this opportunity would lead, but she knew one thing. For the first time, someone had not judged her by what she had. Someone had noticed what she could become. Alexander Whitmore had always believed that opportunities were created by those who had enough power to provide them. But after meeting Sophia Bennett, he began to understand that a true opportunity was not about giving someone a shortcut. It was about recognizing the strength they already carried. In the days after the black card arrived, Sophia continued working at the restaurant while carefully considering what the unexpected gesture meant. She did not suddenly see herself as someone important. She remained the same person who arrived early, helped her coworkers, and treated every customer with patience. The difference was that now someone else had finally noticed the qualities she had quietly shown for years. Alexander watched from a distance as Sophia carefully approached this new chapter of her life. He wanted to make sure she knew the opportunity was hers to shape. He did not want to control her decisions or make her feel like she owed him anything. For the first time, Alexander was offering something without expecting a return. That realization surprised him because his entire life had been built around exchanges, agreements, and calculated decisions. Sophia was teaching him that some connections were valuable because they were genuine. A few days later, Alexander invited Sophia to visit a small office space he had arranged for her to see. He explained that it was not a finished business waiting for her to manage. It was simply a place where she could begin exploring her ideas. Sophia walked through the space quietly, imagining what it could become. She thought about all the years she had spent working hard while wondering if her dreams were realistic. She remembered the moments when she almost gave up because progress felt too far away. Yet she had continued because she believed that dedication mattered. Alexander noticed the emotion in her expression. He understood that this moment was not about the office or the resources. It was about someone finally believing that her dreams deserved attention. You know, you could have asked for anything, Alexander said. A different home, a large amount of money, anything you wanted. Sophia smiled and shook her head. Things can disappear, she replied. But a chance to build something meaningful can change a person forever. Her answer stayed with Alexander. He realized that Sophia viewed success differently from the people he usually met. She was not focused on what she could gain. She was focused on what she could create. As Sophia began planning her next steps, she faced challenges that tested her confidence. There were moments when she questioned whether she belonged in a different world. But each time she remembered why she started. She was not trying to become someone else. She was simply giving herself permission to grow. Alexander saw that determination and respected it more every day. He had expected the black card to be the biggest gift he could offer. Instead, he discovered that the greatest gift was believing in someone before the world recognized them. Sophia had not changed because of Alexander's support. She had always possessed the qualities that made her special. The difference was that now she finally had the opportunity to show them. And Alexander Whitmore began to realize that the woman he first noticed because of one simple conversation was becoming the person who changed the way he understood success, trust, and the value of giving someone a chance. As Sophia Bennett continued building the future she had always imagined, she discovered that the greatest challenge was not learning something new. It was believing that she truly belonged in a place she once thought was beyond her reach. For years, Sophia had been the person standing in the background, working hard while others received recognition. Now, she found herself surrounded by new possibilities, new responsibilities, and people who saw potential in her. But she remained the same person Alexander Whitmore first noticed at the restaurant. She stayed humble, patient, and focused on creating something meaningful. Alexander watched her progress with quiet admiration. He had expected Sophia to change after receiving support from someone as influential as him. Instead, she became even more determined to prove that the opportunity had been worth giving. She did not rely on his reputation or connections. She studied, planned, and worked carefully because she wanted the results to represent her own effort. That was something Alexander respected deeply. In his world, many people tried to use relationships to move forward. Sophia was different. She wanted to build something that reflected her own values. However, not everyone understood Alexander's decision. Some people around him questioned why he invested time and resources into someone they considered ordinary. They saw Sophia's former job and assumed they knew her limits. They did not see the dedication, intelligence, and compassion that Alexander had already discovered. During a business conversation, someone suggested that Alexander should focus his attention elsewhere. They believed supporting a waitress was not the kind of decision expected from someone in his position. Alexander listened calmly. In the past, he might have agreed because he cared about how others viewed his choices. But now he understood that appearances did not tell the whole story. "You are looking at where she started," Alexander said. "I am looking at where she can go." Those words reflected how much he had changed. He no longer measured people only by their current circumstances. He considered their character, their effort, and their potential. Later that week, Alexander visited Sophia's new workspace. He found her reviewing plans and making notes. She looked tired, but she was smiling because she was proud of the progress she had made. "Do you ever regret accepting the opportunity?" Alexander asked. Sophia thought for a moment before answering. "No, but I do remind myself every day that this chance comes with responsibility." Her answer impressed him. She did not view the support as a gift that allowed her to stop trying. She viewed it as a reason to work harder. Alexander realized that this was the quality that made Sophia different. She understood that success was not about receiving something valuable. It was about using that opportunity wisely. As their connection grew, Alexander began seeing his own life differently. Sophia had shown him that influence was not only about what a person could provide. It was also about what they could inspire in others. The man who once believed everything could be measured through power was learning that some of the most important things could not be purchased. Sophia Bennett had never asked Alexander to change her life. She had only shown him the strength of a person who refused to give up. And that lesson became one of the most valuable things Alexander Whitmore had ever received. Alexander Whitmore had spent years believing that his greatest achievements came from having control over every situation. He built his reputation by making careful decisions, protecting his interests, and staying several steps ahead of everyone around him. But as Sophia Bennett continued proving herself, Alexander discovered that the most meaningful changes in life often came from moments he could never plan. Watching Sophia grow reminded him that potential was not created by money or influence. It was revealed when someone finally received the chance to show what they could do. Sophia's progress continued to surprise the people who had once underestimated her. She was not trying to impress anyone. She was not trying to prove that she belonged in Alexander's world. She was simply focused on creating something valuable. Her determination earned respect from people who initially questioned her abilities. Slowly, they began to understand what Alexander had already seen. Sophia's strength came from years of patience, responsibility, and commitment. One afternoon, Alexander visited Sophia's workspace and found her preparing ideas for the future. She had organized everything carefully, from her goals to the steps needed to achieve them. He noticed something important. The opportunity he provided had not changed who she was. It had simply allowed the qualities she already possessed to become visible. "You know what surprises me the most?" Alexander said. Sophia looked up and smiled. "What?" "You never acted like you needed this chance. You acted like you were grateful to have it." Sophia thought about his words. "I think people sometimes confuse needing help with being weak," she replied. "Everyone needs an opportunity at some point. What matters is what you do after receiving it." Alexander understood that her perspective was different from his own. He had always viewed assistance as a transaction. Someone gave something, and someone else returned something. Sophia saw it differently. She believed support created responsibility, not dependence. That lesson changed the way Alexander approached many parts of his life. He started paying more attention to the people around him. He noticed employees who worked quietly without recognition. He listened to ideas from people whose voices were often ignored. The same man who once focused only on results began appreciating the effort behind those results. Sophia never told Alexander to change. She never gave him advice about leadership or power. She simply lived according to her own values, and that example influenced him more than any speech could have. However, Alexander knew that his choices would continue to be questioned. Some people still believed his support for Sophia was unnecessary. They believed someone with his position should only associate with people who matched his status. But Alexander no longer viewed the world through those limitations. He had learned that a person's value was not determined by their job title, their background, or their circumstances. It was determined by who they were when nobody was watching. As the weeks passed, Sophia's confidence grew, and Alexander found himself admiring not just her ambition, but her character. The woman he first noticed because she answered a simple question honestly had become someone who changed the way he understood success. She showed him that true influence was not about having the ability to give someone everything. It was about recognizing when someone already had everything needed to succeed. And Alexander Whitmore finally understood that the greatest opportunities are not always the ones we receive. Sometimes, they are the ones that teach us how to see others differently. Alexander Whitmore often thought about how different his life looked from the moment he first met Sophia Bennett. At that time, he believed he understood people. He believed he could recognize ambition, loyalty, and honesty by watching how others behaved around power. But Sophia showed him that the most important qualities were often found in people who never tried to prove themselves. She never entered his life asking for anything. She never looked at him as someone who could solve every problem. She simply answered one question with honesty, and that answer changed the way he viewed the world. Months later, Sophia continued building the future she had dreamed about. She faced challenges, learned from mistakes, and continued moving forward with determination. The black card that once represented an unexpected opportunity had become something much more meaningful. It represented trust. It represented the moment when someone believed in her before she had the chance to prove herself to everyone else. Alexander watched her journey with pride, but he also understood something important. Sophia's success did not happen because of him. He had opened a door, but she was the one who walked through it. She was the one who worked hard, made decisions, and created something valuable. That was the quality he admired most. One evening, Alexander and Sophia sat together discussing how much had changed. The city lights reflected through the windows, creating a quiet moment between two people who came from completely different worlds. "When I first met you, I thought I was giving you an opportunity," Alexander said. "But I think you gave me one too." Sophia looked surprised. "What kind of opportunity?" she asked. Alexander smiled. "The opportunity to see people differently." Sophia understood what he meant. Before they met, Alexander had spent years surrounded by success, but rarely experienced genuine connection. He had achieved influence and recognition, but he had forgotten the importance of simple human understanding. Sophia reminded him that a person's value was not measured by their position, their wealth, or the opinions of others. It was measured by their actions and their character. Over time, the people around Alexander noticed the change in him. He was still a powerful mafia boss with responsibilities and influence, but he became a leader who listened more carefully and valued people more deeply. He no longer ignored those who worked quietly behind the scenes. He recognized that every person had a story worth hearing. Sophia never expected to have that kind of impact. She had only wanted a chance to create a better future. But sometimes, the people who change our lives the most are the ones who never realize the difference they make. Looking back, Alexander knew the black card was never the most important part of the story. The real gift was the lesson behind it. He learned that generosity was not about showing power. It was about creating possibilities. He learned that success was not only about what a person could achieve alone. It was also about the people who inspired growth along the way. And Sophia learned that accepting an opportunity did not make her less independent. It gave her the space to show the world what she was capable of becoming. The mafia boss who once believed everything could be controlled discovered something far more valuable. The greatest changes in life often begin with a simple moment of honesty. A waitress who only wanted a chance became the person who reminded him what true success meant. And Alexander Whitmore knew that some opportunities do not just change one life. They change two.